In the Northwest Territories, deep beyond the last marked trails, lies a valley very few have ever seen, and fewer still have escaped. A place said to breathe, to whisper, to remember every footstep that trespasses upon it. In 1908, two brothers went in search of gold. 2 years later, they were found dead beside their campfire, rifles untouched, gold pans stacked neatly, both men missing their heads. Since then, prospectors, pilots, and scientists have all entered the Nahanni. Some return with stories of fog that glows and rivers that hum. Others are never seen again. Welcome to the Valley of the Headless Men. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Common Anomaly Podcast. I'm your host, Stuart James. Joining me today is Clayton James. Today we're talking about the Nahanni Valley, also known as the Valley of the Headless Men. How's it going, brother?
It's going good. I'm really excited for this topic.
I am so excited for this topic. You know, I'm always excited for the topics we cover on the show. Sometimes you pick a topic, sometimes I pick a topic, and sometimes I'm like, I've never heard of that before. I don't know, I'm a little hum-ha, but always when I start researching and digging into something, I get really interested. But I have to say, this week, I had a lot of fun with this one.
Yeah,
this is a really fun topic. Well, how did we end up here? What led us to the road of the Nahanni Valley?
I don't know, honestly.
I think, wasn't it the Swift Runner case? Because I'd
never heard of
this.
I suggested this one because I thought it would be a neat follow-up to the Swift Runner story. It kind of shares a lot of the same themes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd never heard of it before.
I'd never heard of it before until, I think just a couple weeks ago.
You seemed a little kind of hum-ha on it when I suggested it, and then once you looked into it, you seemed really excited.
Oh, yeah, because it just keeps going. It just keeps going. There's so much there. I found this amazing book by this fellow. He must be a local guy to Western Canada, at least, named Hammerson Peters. And I'm going to be referencing his book a lot. And it's called The Legend of the Nahanni Valley, or Legends of the Nahanni Valley. Excuse me. So much great stuff in there. I've got a couple choice stories out of there that are a lot of fun. And there's just a lot of Canadian, again, really interesting Canadian history that I'd never heard of. A lot of Indigenous lore that plays into it. Mm-hmm. Just fascinating, really fascinating stuff. Again, we're in the boreal forest region of Canada.
Yeah.
In Canada's north.
Even further north than before.
Even further north, yeah, kind of just shy of the Arctic Circle. And there's this kind of enigmatic, mysterious valley that's almost like Canada's lost world. If you've heard those legends of the Arctic regions harboring these kind of microclimates that are almost subtropical, kind of out of time kind of worlds. And this valley's kind of like that.
Yeah, it really reminded me of the lost world. You know, it's so remote. It's such a remote area. It's in the Mackenzie Mountains in the Northwest Territories. It's just got this incredible geography to it, like canyons that are 4,000 feet deep.
Yeah, there's almost as deep as the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, there's a waterfall there that is twice the height of the Niagara Falls.
Yeah,
and it's got all sorts of geothermal activity there.
Yeah, there's hot springs everywhere, and that's why they think there's these microclimates.
Yeah,
there definitely is these microclimates.
Yeah, it creates these microclimates where little pockets of this valley will stay warm, you know, year round. And there's actually like these rare plants that only grow there in these super rare microclimates. There's actually like this really rare orchid that only blooms in that valley. It's called Mackenzie orchid, or the spotted lady slipper, and it only blooms in that valley. It very much sounds like a lost world. And it's full of gold.
That's right.
So they say.
That's right. It was definitely a target of the kind of Klondike era, late 19th century, early 20th century gold rushes,
Hmm.
which led to some of these more legendary stories of people going missing, people going harmed, there being a curse on the area. And of course, with all these hot springs and the temperature differential in these deep kind of cavernous valleys, the area is a lot of the time shrouded in this thick fog or mist,
Yeah.
which just engenders those feelings of mystery. And there's tales of all kinds of strange creatures out of time, various forms of humanoids, lost tribes, that sort of thing. It's just there's so much there. There's so much to unpack. I think we're going to have a really hard time squeezing it into an hour. I think we're definitely going to be coming back to this
Yeah.
this subject at a later time.
Yeah. I think what makes it most interesting is, despite the warnings, the native tribe that lives kind of
The Dene.
off, yes, the Dene lives just a little bit away from that valley, because they would always warn travelers not to go there. They said it was a cursed place, a domain of evil. That phrase got used to. It was full of bad medicine, and it was to be avoided. Prospectors went in anyway, despite these warnings.
Yeah, well, let's start there, why don't we? Let's talk about how it got this reputation and eventually kind of this pseudonym of the Valley of the Headless Men. There's a number of cases, but probably the most famous case is that of the McLeod brothers.
Yeah, they were the first. The first Europeans to fall victim to, well, they were Métis.
They were Métis.
They
yeah.
were Métis.
But of Scottish descent as well. Yeah. So do you want to talk about them a little bit and those poor fellows?
What year was this? Well, I guess it depends which expedition you want to talk about, because the McLeod brothers actually made multiple expeditions to the Nahanni Valley starting in 1902. They were originally heading towards the Klondike, like everyone else.
Yeah.
But they had heard tales of this really remote valley that might be a shortcut to the Klondike, and there may just be some gold there too.
Yeah.
So they thought, why don't we go check it out? And they journeyed to this valley, and they found gold. They found gold immediately, and a lot of it.
Yeah.
Actually, on their first trip there, they filled up every spare container they had with gold.
Yeah.
All
and
they
it was
could carry.
Wasn't it specifically kind of these richly veined chunks of quartz that had gold filaments all through it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because strange kind of geology in this area. It's very rich in quartz. Seems to be very rich in gold and in copper. Like that again leads into some of the mystery. Like instruments don't work, compasses aren't reliable in this area. Supposedly because of the mineral content of the earth. There's something about the geology in the area that's quite unique.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like why the Stanley Hotel is haunted. Huge quartz deposit right underneath it.
Right, yeah, that's right. Channeling all that psychic and spiritual energy, yeah. So the McLeod brothers, they're out there seeking their fortune, like many in the Klondike.
Yeah. So their first expedition, despite finding all this gold, it didn't end so well for them, because they filled up every container they had with gold. And they're like, okay, we're heading back. So they loaded up their boat and started heading down the river. But the Nahanni River is pretty treacherous.
Yeah.
And their boat capsizes.
Yeah, there's all kinds of rapids through there. And
they call it I believe it's called the Cascade of 13 Steps.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been like whitewater rafting.
I have not, yeah.
I've gone once. And it's absolutely terrifying, especially when you go over one of those drops and the boat just goes into free fall.
Yeah.
And you just hang on like hell, hoping the boat won't flip over in midair.
Yeah, not for me.
Yeah, the Nahanni's full of those. So their boat capsizes. They lose everything. They lose their gear. They lose their supplies. They lose pretty much all their gold.
Jeez.
But they know where they can find gold now.
Yeah, and so in this journey, they got out of the valley alive.
Yeah.
I mean, hardship as well. It's hard country, right? It's hard terrain to navigate. It's very remote. So, but now they know there's gold there. So they arrange another expedition.
Yeah. So on this expedition, they were joined by a fellow named Robert Weir. His background is a little hard to figure out. There's varying stories of who exactly Robert Weir was. He was some
Okay.
sort of engineer, but he was an acquaintance of theirs who joined them on this expedition. All three of them disappear.
Yeah.
They head into the valley, and they're never heard from again. Once 1 year goes by, no one's too concerned because
Yeah, these expeditions, they would take a long time, right?
Yeah, but after 2 years, their younger brother Charlie he's starting to get really concerned. So he organizes a search party to go into the valley to look for them. He does find the remains of their camp, of the little shelter they've built. It's collapsed. And he finds the skeletal remains of his two brothers, and they're missing their heads.
Yeah. Skulls nowhere to be seen.
Yeah. Their heads are never found.
Yeah.
And originally...
And their rifles were just propped up against a tree right next to their camp.
Well, one of the bodies looked like he was actually reaching for his rifle.
Yeah, and the other was just right in his sleeping bag. So it's like something caught them off guard in the middle of the night kind of thing and very cleanly relieved them of their heads.
Yeah. The body of Robert Weir wasn't there. So immediately it was suspected that Robert Weir had murdered these two men, taken off with their gold.
Right.
But a third body is found, a few weeks later, away from this camp that is also missing its head. A lot of people believe that was the body of Robert Weir, though it's never been definitively determined. There's a lot of varying stories about Robert Weir.
Probably kind of hard in those days without the head to identify bodies.
Yeah.
Like you would have to rely on the possessions of the person. I think that's how they identified them.
Yeah, they identified them by their clothing. But yeah, there's different stories about Robert Weir. Pretty much assumed that was his body, but there's also another story of Robert Weir later being sighted in Vancouver, and then later being sighted in Calgary. And apparently Charlie McLeod, he was trying to track down Robert Weir like years later.
Yeah,
he was tracking him all across the country. There's one story where he apparently cornered Robert Weir at a ranch just outside of Calgary, but by the time he got there, Robert Weir had shot himself in the head.
Right.
But that story is a bit dubious. A lot of these stories have kind of different variations on them because through retellings, different versions of them emerge.
I was actually amazed kind of looking up different sources of this, just how muddy history is. Because this is not that long ago. This is like 125 years ago or so. Yeah.
But the McLeod brothers and one other body at the time, regardless of who it belonged to, were found decapitated. The official ruling sounds pretty ridiculous, is that they died of hypothermia and starvation, and their heads were removed by wolverines.
Yes, which is just ridiculous. Obviously, and animals, they don't just
take the head.
Yeah. That's so ridiculous.
They're going for everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I would dare say, I mean, I'm no forensics expert, but I would dare say that they died from having their heads removed.
Yeah.
That's just me. That's just me speculating.
That'd do it.
Obviously.
That'd do it.
Being a layman, not a medical practitioner whatsoever.
Yeah.
But this is far from the only story. So there's a pattern emerges here.
The McLeods were the first, but they were far from the last of prospectors going into this valley, despite the warnings of the Dene people not to go there, and showing up dead later with their heads cut off.
Yeah, and so immediately, did you want to talk about some of those other examples?
Well, I've got a whole list of them here.
Okay, let's just hear a few of the other cases, just so we create a context here of.
Okay, so 1908 was Frank and William McLeod. 1917, Martin Jorgensen, Swiss prospector. He was found decapitated in a burned-out cabin. 1927, Albert Fisher. He was kind of an outlaw turned prospector. The RCMP were actually trying to track him down, and they tracked him to the Nahanni Valley. They found him there. He was dead, and he was missing his head. Almost actually on the exact same spot the McLeod brothers were found, interestingly enough. Angus Hall in 1928, just a year later. Another prospector disappeared without a trace.
Yeah.
Body was never found. And then in 1931, there's Phil Powers. We can talk about him a bit. I want to dwell on him for a bit because he's a bit of a mysterious character too, because it is said in some versions of the story that he was part of the MacLeod brothers expedition in the first place.
Yeah, I came across those two kind of conflicting points as well.
He had parted ways with them earlier in the expedition, but he was part of the search party with Charlie that found the body.
So that's probably how it got muddied in there. Yeah.
And then years later, he went back to the valley to prospect, and he kept telling people that he had unfinished business in that valley. Anyway, he goes in there.
It feels like a lot of the people that end up frequenting this area, kind of a spell gets cast over them.
Oh yeah.
And it's not, and that could be said for this entire region. There's a thing, the Yukon kind of has a similar reputation.
Gold fever. That's a thing that gets talked a lot about when you talk about gold rushes. People become obsessive over it.
Yeah. Well, and it just seems like there's something about the land, the terrain, is kind of a call to this isolated part of the world, just casts a spell over people where they keep coming back.
Yeah. But anyway, Phil Powers, he goes back to the Nahanni Valley to prospect for gold. He builds himself a cabin. He is found. Later, his cabin has burned to the ground, and his head has been removed from his body. His head was found. His head was in the cabin with him, but it had been removed from his body.
Yeah, okay. I didn't realize that the head was still there, because I think in most every other case, the head is just completely gone.
Yeah. Then in 1936, just a few years later, Joe Mulholland and Bill Epierre, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Again, prospectors looking for gold. They disappeared without a trace, but later on, a bush pilot spotted a burned out cabin in the woods, and inside was two headless skeletons, which is presumed to be these two, Joe Mulholland and Bill Epierre. This just goes on and on.
Goes on and on, yeah. So,
like right up until 2005, actually.
That's right.
It's
so yeah, we've got a pattern
cases.
here. We've got a pattern here, and hence the reputation, the Valley of the Headless Men. Yeah. So, but if we can rewind back to the turn of the 20th century, immediately the Dene people, the local inhabitants, became a suspect. Were they perhaps unhappy about Westerners and explorers and prospectors intruding on their territory?
So initially they were suspects, but they were ruled out pretty quickly because...
Well, it was them warning people away, saying...
And the Dene, they don't really,
hunt in there. They don't...
They're very friendly people, and they actually benefit a lot from trading with people that pass through.
Yeah.
They're very much not out to get anyone. And they were the ones that kept warning people against going in this valley. They say it's a cursed place. It's, a domain of evil.
Yeah. One of the things that kept the Dene people out of that valley is that they had legends of another tribe, a very kind of more primitive and vicious people that lived in those mountains.
Yeah.
That would constantly, the Nahanni. Yeah. That would come down from the mountains and raid their settlements in the lowlands.
Yeah.
And they were quite vicious. They would steal their food. They would kidnap their women. And apparently they were quite brutal.
Yeah.
And they're said to be, very large and very aggressive. They were almost like cavemen-like.
Yeah, they're described as being, very aggressive and cruel and solitary, but fierce warriors who would attack wearing armor made of stone and bones.
Yeah.
And they were constantly attacking the Dene, and basically just to keep them in a state of weakness, they would periodically attack and kill the Dene's strongest warriors.
Yeah.
Just constantly keeping them in a state of weakness. But one day, over a period of time, the attacks kind of just stopped.
Yeah.
So the Dene were able to sort of rebuild their strength.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we're going to end this. We're going to end this war.
Yeah.
So they sent a party.
A war party.
Yeah, into the valley to find the Naha village. And they were going to kill all the Naha in the night.
And they did find the
Naha village,
yeah.
But all the Naha had completely disappeared.
Yeah, completely abandoned.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere. And quite suddenly. It's almost like overnight the attacks stopped and then they were just gone. For anthropologists, it's kind of hotly debated whether this tribe actually existed or not, because a lot of the evidence is basically from oral history of the Dene.
Although
there is some evidence. Though.
The Naha, they were also referred to as the Mountain Dene because these two tribes were very closely related, shared a common language. Now, some anthropologists will argue that when the Naha disappeared, what happened was they actually migrated south to the United States, because what they found is the Dene language actually shares a lot of common root words with the Navajo language.
Right.
So they're thinking that the Naha migrated south and became the ancestors of what we now know as the Navajo.
Right.
But
again,
that's hotly debated.
Yeah, nobody really knows for sure.
You've got this lost tribe described as aggressive and cruel, also rumored to be cannibals.
Yeah.
What the Dene believed is that, well, one of the things they believe, the Dene are not monolithic. One of the things that's said is that the Naha were punished because they were engaging in cannibalism and they were inhabiting this valley, which...
right. Which the Dene is said to be alive. It's like the land is alive itself or has a spirit to it. And it'll take what it wants.
So to the Dene, this valley is sacred to them, and it's actually part of their creation myth. So part of their creation myth is they've got this character named Yamoria, also known as the Horizon Walker. And back in the Dene's prehistory, the earth was filled with these giant primordial monsters that would hunt people. And this Horizon Walker came along, and as he walked across the earth, he transformed the land around him. He reshaped the land, and he also transformed the creatures into the smaller creatures that we can now live with today.
Right.
And he actually had to do battle with some of the larger creatures. There's this great story of him fighting this giant beaver, like this giant beaver the size of Godzilla. It's a great story, and actually, like
the massive paddle tail, the size of a building.
Yeah, pretty much. And the Dene actually say that the story of the Horizon Walker's journey is told in the landscape. There's this geographical feature called the ramparts, and basically what the ramparts are, it's just this rock formation, but that is apparently where this giant beaver's hand slammed down on the ground because he was trying to crush the Horizon Walker. Yeah. But then the Horizon Walker shot him with his arrows and skinned him and hung his pelts on what is now Bear Mountain. There's this odd kind of formation on Bear Mountain. I'll put a picture of it up. But that's supposed to be where the Horizon Walker hung this beaver's giant pelts. Actually, this story is so important to the Dene that part of the emblem of the Dene Nation is a picture of Bear Mountain with these giant beaver pelts on it.
Right. Oh, cool.
But anyway, I found that story really interesting because to the Dene, the Nahanni River is supposed to mark the Horizon Walker's path as he walked across the earth, transforming the earth around him. And I found that so interesting. It's part of the reason I love like Native American mythology, because these people are so in touch with the land.
Yeah.
Because in a sense you could say that about the Nahanni River, because the Nahanni River is what you'd call an antecedent river.
Right.
And what I mean by that, this is a very rare kind of river. So basically, as plate tectonics will uplift the ground and form mountain ranges, it'll generally move rivers around it. Water will follow the path of least resistance.
Yeah, it'll roll downhill.
But not antecedent rivers. An antecedent river is basically a river that says F you to plate tectonics.
Right.
It's a river that flows powerfully enough that it's able to erode the rock as the ground is being uplifted, faster than plate tectonics can uplift the ground.
Right, yeah.
So it basically a river that cuts against the landscape.
Yeah.
So
when you described this to me, I had a metaphor in my mind. Like, if you're going to cut a piece of fruit or whatever with a knife, you'd have the knife above whatever you're going to cut and you'd force down.
Yeah.
Right? Create a cut. Or you could turn, say, a knife upside down, facing up with the blade facing up in the air, and drop whatever you're going to cut on top of the blade. Mm-hmm. And that's like what the river's doing. Is that a good metaphor or no?
It's a metaphor.
Well, but anyway, that's what I got in my brain when you were explaining
It's basically a river that predates the geography. Basically, all these mountain ranges formed around the river. This river seems to cut directly through mountains. Yeah. That's how you get these incredibly deep canyons and this just epic landscape.
Yeah, and apparently the water in some places of this river that's still there is just as deep as the canyon walls that tower above ground.
Yeah. But I found that so interesting with the story of the Horizon Walker, this story where the river marks the Horizon Walker's path and he's transforming the world around him. Yeah. Just like the river, the earth was transformed around the river. Yeah. Like the river itself is ancient in the extreme.
Yeah. I mean, well, and there's other rivers like this around the world that also have similar kind of sacred reverence to them, don't they?
Yeah, like some other examples of antecedent rivers. You've got the Colorado River, which that's the Grand Canyon. Yeah. You've got the Nile River. You've got the Indus River, which cuts through the Himalayas. There's also the Yangtze River in China, which kind of connects to the Three Gorges area. Right. Sometimes referred to as the River of the Immortals.
That sounds pretty cool. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, and all of these antecedent rivers seem to be sacred sites. Yeah. To whatever cultures were around these rivers.
Well, and we've discussed previously on the show that flowing water is supposed to be a conduit for spiritual energy. Maybe there's something to all that.
It's interesting because a lot of people who go into the Nahanni Valley describe it as feeling like a place outside of time.
Yeah.
A place
it's got some magic to it.
Disconnected from the rest of the world. And I find that so interesting about the river because the river, you could almost say, in a way, it does exist outside of time. Yeah. The earth was constantly being transformed around it, but the river just remains as it was. Yeah. And
kind of all through history.
You hear that phrase, a place outside of time, so often. At the same time, you hear reports of prehistoric creatures being sighted in the Nahanni Valley.
And maybe that explains some of the above and beyond just the hot springs creating these kind of microclimates in the deep valley crevasses. Yeah, what if there's this element of the land is still partially locked in another epoch of history where maybe it wasn't so cold as the surrounding area. Yeah, and there's tales of prehistoric creatures like we found this one of the the wolf bear.
Yeah, a giant wolf the size of a bear.
Yeah, it's kind of thought to be this very specific prehistoric creature that is trying to think of the
dire wolf.
No, not older than not a dire wolf. It's like something in between.
Yeah, the Dene call it a wahali. No, yeah, a wahila.
Do you have the geological epoch though? That's what I was trying to pull out of my memory. No. It's not Cretaceous, but it's one of those, like Pliocene or something.
We'll go with
I don't know. Whatever. But anyway, a very ancient, supposedly extinct creature. Again, a lot larger than any wolf that exists today.
And you also have sightings and tracks found of woolly mammoths or mastodons.
Yeah, that's right.
In the area. It is like a real lost world.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of cool that the geography, they've got these really steep, sheer canyon walls, and they're pockmarked with all these caves, right? And that's what engenders some of this mystery. It's this valley full of fog with these high, vertical, sheer cliff faces, but then all these caves that seem like they'd be really hard to access, at least from the outside, pockmarking, and people, as they're traversing the river, will say they feel like they're being watched, and they'll hear cries of who knows what, right?
Well,
and what could be occupying these caves, and there's stories of these Sasquatch-like creatures.
The Dene know exactly what's in those caves. It's one of the primordial monsters that the Horizon Walker banished from the rest of the world, and it's called the Nahanni, or Bushman.
Yeah.
basically, and they're basically described as 7 to 8 foot tall Sasquatch looking creatures with glowing red eyes and covered in foul smelling hair,
Yeah.
is how they're described.
Well, and I find that as well as the accounts of the Naha as well. And like some of these caves, definitely ancient cave art and artifacts have been found and discovered in these caves.
Mm-hmm.
Like I forwarded you a video earlier this week. It was from the Alberta Provincial Archive.
Yeah.
And it's basically this couple's vacation camera footage from 1958. This couple, Mel and Ethel Ross, took a journey to the Nahanni Valley, and they documented their entire trip. Mm-hmm. It's like an episode of Alone from 1958.
Yeah.
Right? And I can't believe these people. They're hardcore. Like, it was just the two of them. They're packing everything along with them. Like, obviously very capable, experienced woodsmen, but they're taking care of themselves like they're just this suburban couple in the 1950s. Like, they stop and they shave and they're well dressed and they're making strawberry shortcake in this remote land. And yeah, they went and explored some of these caves while they're on their journey, documented, and they found ancient cave art. And some of these caves they explored as deep as they could with the resources they had, but they said some of them went very deep into the mountain. Mm-hmm. So there definitely could have been some kind of creatures or tribes or whatever living out of those cave systems.
Yeah.
Who knows how intricate and interconnected those caves could be.
Yeah, the Nahanni, according to the Dene tribe, inhabit those caves. Dene have such a fear of the Nahanni that if they spot tracks of a Nahanni, they will abandon entire camps and villages just if they suspect an Nahanni is lurking nearby.
Right.
Because apparently it will abduct their women and children and drag them off into the mountains and eat them. The men it'll just murder, and it'll murder the men by twisting their heads off.
Right.
Interesting detail.
Wow. So, should we go?
I would love to.
I would love to go.
It's very expensive.
I don't. Yeah.
I should mention.
It's now a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Yeah.
It's actually the first UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting point unto itself.
Yeah. You have limited routes of getting into the Nahanni Valley. You could either.
Well, it's so remote.
Yeah, you can either go by the river. It's a 20-day trip. Costs $10,000 per person.
Jesus.
There's companies that'll fly you out there in a helicopter for just a day trip. $5,000 per person.
Oh,
or we could just walk through hundreds of kilometers of uncharted boreal forest
and canoe up the rapids like the Rosses.
But we're not as tough as people from the 50s.
No, yeah. Honestly, I was watching that. Go check it out. It's on YouTube. I'm going to link to it in the show notes. If you can stand, obviously, it's Mel Ross narrating it, and he's quite elderly at the point where he's narrating it. So, and the audio is pretty terrible. But, once you're listening to it for a little bit, you get used to it. And it's really quite fascinating. It's about an hour and a half long, if you're curious. And there's some really cool shots of the Nahanni Valley in there and some of the geography of the area. Really spectacular. Why don't we talk about the curse and get into the madness?
Yeah, so I found some instances of this too, kind of sprinkled in with all the stories of disappearances and beheadings. There were stories of madness. Interestingly enough, 2 of these cases actually happened right back to back. Let's see, there was a woman named May Lefferty, who was a Métis woman. She had tagged along with a Dene hunting party, and she disappeared without a trace midway through their hunt. They went searching for her. They never found her, but they found her tracks. And it looked like, as they followed her tracks, partway through, they became barefoot, and they started finding bits of her clothing. Like she was removing all her clothes as she was just wandering through the wilderness, and they never found her. Just a year later, very similar story, in 1926, her name was Annie Lefferty, again, part of a Métis hunting and trapping party. She goes missing from her camp. They go looking for her. They never find her. Later on, Dene Hunter claims he saw her This guy,
kind of like scrambling into the brush.
This guy, his name was Big Charlie, and
Yeah.
he describes seeing a pale woman scrambling up the mountain. He says that it looked like the devil had gotten her. She
Right.
was acting possessed, and she was taking all her clothes off, crawling around on all fours as she disappeared up the mountain. And he said, "Well, the devil's got her. I'm not going after her.
Yeah.
I'm not messing with that."
That's the weird thing, and that calls back to what I was saying earlier. That it seems like a kind of spell gets cast over people that spend time in this area, right? And this madness is certainly another recurring theme, as well as the violent murders.
But there was another madman you wanted to talk about.
I've been dying to get into this story.
Let's talk about the Mad Trapper of Rat River.
Oh man, I had so much fun with this story.
It's a great story.
I'm gonna try and condense it down. There's a lot of detail here, but I'm not gonna get into all of it. So there was this very reclusive, supposedly Scandinavian trapper living in the Mackenzie Delta area, right near this Nahanni Valley, the early 1930s. And there was another trapper in the area that their traps were being set off and then slung up in trees. And they figured it was this character. He went by the name Albert Johnson. So that's what we think this man's name was Albert Johnson. And so he's quite reclusive, kept to himself as a trapper. And so this complaint comes in from another trapper in the area, and he thinks it's Johnson up to this, is setting off his traps.
Yeah.
And so a couple members of the Mounties are dispatched to go question Albert Johnson about his involvement. So, and I really feel it was a tough job back in the day being a Mountie.
Yeah.
You know, this area is so remote and so sparsely populated. So the Mounties had to take a journey of somewhere between 80 and 100 kilometers from the nearest detachment of the mounted police to find this guy's cabin in the bush in the middle of winter. This is like late December of 1931. They take this journey, takes a couple days out to this guy's cabin. They know he's in there because they can see smoke billowing out of the chimney stack.
Yeah.
And they knock on the door, and there's no answer. They try to peek inside, and Albert Johnson's obviously in there because he covers up the window with like a potato sack.
Yeah. Go away.
Go away, right? And he won't answer the door, and they don't have the authority to enter the premises without permission. So they have no choice but to leave. A day's journey, in the dead of winter, through the roughest terrain, the most remote, dangerous country you can imagine. And they just have to go back.
Yeah.
So they go back, and they come back a week later, now armed with a warrant.
Yeah.
So they're fulfilling their duty. It's two Mounties again. And so now they've approached the cabin. Again, they can see smoke billowing from the chimney stack. They know he's in there. And they call out to him and knock on the door and say, hey, we need to speak to you.
We've got a warrant.
We've got a warrant. We have the authority to kick the door in if you don't come out here and have a word with us. And they're answered with a shotgun blast through the door.
Yeah, Albert Johnson opens fire.
Yeah, he just straight through the door, clips one of the Mounties. So they return fire, and they're getting fire back at. There's a quick exchange of gunfire, and they just quickly retreat.
Yeah.
And rush back to the nearest.
They had to, because one of these Mounties took a bullet to the chest.
That's right.
It did miss his heart. This Mountie ended up surviving.
Yeah.
But now it's on.
That's right.
They just wanted to ask him some questions before, but now he is shot a police officer.
And maybe he might have had nothing to do with this other trapper and what was going on. But yeah, he was so resistant to whatever interaction that he just opened fire, right? But you're right. Now those two Mounties make it back. The one fellow survives and recovers. But now the local authorities are like, okay, well, we got to bring this guy in.
Yeah, they round up a posse.
They round up a posse of about 10 men to go confront him in the woods. And again, and I think they went by sled dog so that they could be fast this time. So they had 42 sled dogs, 10 men. Armed bushmen and Mounties. And again, they approach the house and they announce, they say, look, we're bringing you in, but that officer you shot, he survived. You're not going to be charged with murder. You're not going to be hung, but you're coming with us. And again, another firefight breaks out. But amazingly, Albert Johnson is able to hold off these 10 men because he has fortified his cabin.
Yeah, he is armed to the teeth.
And he's cut out loopholes around the perimeter of his cabin so that he has firing angles. And he's apparently this amazing shot. He's so deadly accurate with his rifle that he's holding off 10 men from all directions for an entire day and well into the evening, to the point where this posse is so desperate, they just hurled sticks of dynamite onto the roof of his cabin.
Yeah.
Those go off and basically destroy the entire cabin.
Yeah.
Right? The entire roof is blown off in this massive explosion. A lot of the walls of the cabin collapse. Miraculously, Albert Johnson survives because he had dug out a pit in the floor of the cabin and covered himself with a table or something. Mm-hmm. So they storm into the breach of the hole in the wall of this cabin they just blew up and find that Albert Johnson is right there ready to meet them with more gunfire. And he actually wins. He chases off this posse of 10 men. He's victorious.
Mm-hmm. So they went and they rounded up a bigger posse.
So they got a bigger posse, yeah. So they go back a week later, this time with 18 men.
Yeah, and it was the first time in history the RCMP called in air support.
That's right. They got this Italian
World War
I fighter ace turned HBC bush pilot to help kind of do reconnaissance. Of course, this time they get to the cabin. He's gone. He's figured out that he's got to get out of the area. So, but this spurs off this massive manhunt all over this region for this guy, and they keep picking up his trail, but he's again just seems uncannily talented at evading them. He's putting tracks in repeating loops to dodge, even though he's on foot and on snowshoe in the middle of winter, very harsh country. He's on foot and snowshoe being pursued by this posse of men that have sled dogs, and he's somehow staying ahead of them and evading them.
Yeah.
Finally, they corner him. They corner him in this little mountain range where the native guides that were with this posse say, no, he's trapped. There's no way he can get out of this little pocket because there's a raging blizzard going on, right? And this is an incredibly unscalable mountain.
Yeah.
But somehow, in the middle of this blizzard, this lone guy with no climbing equipment manages to scale this mountain and evade capture from the Mounties. And it's the bush pilot, you said, was able to pick up his trail on the other side.
Yeah.
So this guy is just like superhuman, Jason Bourne, I don't know what. But eventually, I think it was 5 or 6 of the Mounties finally catch up to this guy and corner him. And he knows he can't run anymore, so he just drops his pack down and he pulls out his guns.
Yeah.
And he just makes his last stand, Scarface style.
Yeah, and they shoot him once in the chest, and he just keeps coming.
And he takes a shot. He had a bunch of ammunition in his pocket that got struck by fire and exploded. So all this ammunition he has in his pocket explodes, blowing off chunks of flesh off his hip and thigh. And he's still going. Again, reportedly amazingly accurate in his fire.
Yeah.
Holding out. And he finally takes 7 or 8 hits, something like that, before he's finally subdued and killed.
Yeah, I read they had to shoot him like 20 times to bring him down.
And it's said that when they turned his body over, like he went down face down in the snow, and when they turned him over, he had this insane curled lip grimace of a man who was determined to take out as many enemies as he could on his way out, like Scarface.
Yeah.
This guy is based. This is like right out of Red Dead Redemption. I'm imagining this guy is like
Steven Seagal.
Steven Seagal, yes.
Yeah.
I picture this guy as Steven Seagal in Under Siege. He's the chef. He's like the lone stoic trapper. And all these Mounties are after him, and he just takes them out one by one because he's this master of guerrilla warfare. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. I love this story.
But after they finally killed him, they say, you know what? I bet this was the guy behind all those beheadings.
Yeah, well,
Case closed.
Yeah, one of the things they found in his possession, though, that went to that, he had a lot of money on him.
Oh,
For
yeah.
one thing, he had like $2,400.
It said when he would occasionally come into the trading post to buy supplies, which was very rarely, he was always flashing lots of money around.
Yeah, somehow, I don't know how, he had tons of money. This is like 1931, so $2,400 was no small amount of money.
Yeah.
And he also had a bunch of alluvial gold, and he had a little jar full of gold fillings. So that's what led people to think, well, there's been these beheadings. He's got a jar full of gold fillings. Maybe he's responsible for these decapitations. He's obviously a nutter.
Yeah.
He's stealing the fillings and cutting the heads off to cover the crime. But there was a documentary in the 90s where they did modern forensic analysis of these teeth, and it turns out all these fillings were actually his.
Yeah. And aside from that, after this man dies, the beheadings don't stop.
That's right.
The beheadings
That's right.
continue.
Yeah.
The disappearances continue. The valley keeps claiming people.
Yeah. But yeah, I fell in love with that story when I read it. That had me on the edge of my seat. That was great. That was great.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
So, yeah, why didn't we learn about this kind of stuff in social studies when we were learning about Canadian history, you know? I was like, why have I never heard of this valley until this week? This is the most interesting Canadian history I've ever heard. I don't know about you.
It's up there.
Yeah.
It's up there.
Okay, well, we're rolling up on time.
Well, what do you think? What do you think is taking people's lives and taking people's heads in this valley? Is it the lost tribe of the Naha protecting their land? Is it these Bigfoot creatures that live in the caves and twist people's heads off? Like, what is it?
It seems like there really is something to the valley kind of having its own spirit and its own kind of intent on who it's going to allow to travel through unimpeded and unharmed. And yeah, it does seem like there's something about the gold. There's a whole thing about the gold being cursed, and that if you try to remove gold from the valley, that's when
it's
something goes wrong.
It's interesting to note that of all the prospectors, you know, there's supposedly a lot of gold in this valley, but of all the prospectors who went there and found gold, or if they found gold, a lot of prospectors found nothing there. But the prospectors who did find gold, one of two things would happen. They would suffer some sort of mishap and lose all their gold, or they would lose their heads.
Yeah.
One of those two things would happen if they found gold and tried to take it from the valley.
Yeah. And it's like, and that's what you hear the saying is the valley keeps what it wants.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was even in that video from 1958 of Mel and Ethel Ross, because they had found this little pass, this little isolated pass, several pools of hot springs and rivers that connected. Mm-hmm. Mel Ross was just getting a drink of water and spotted something shiny in the creek bed. Turned out to be what really looked like a nugget of gold, and it was soft and pliable like gold. He says he had never actually seen gold before. And this is all on video, by the way. You can see it on the video footage. And then so he grabs a frying pan. They weren't there looking for gold. They were just adventurers, right?
Yeah.
But because they found this little nugget, they start panning, and they find tons of these big, big nuggets of gold in this creek bed. And they wash them out, and they actually fill like a whole knee sock full of these nuggets of gold from this creek bed. Mm-hmm. This is all on camera. This would be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars worth of gold. Mm-hmm. And they tie it up in this sock and are going to take it with them out of the valley. But as they're trying to traverse this kind of rapid river, Mel loses his footing and loses his pack in the river. And he was on a rope. He was on a line. And luckily his wife had a good handle on the line and was able to save him. But he lost his backpack, and the sock of gold was in the backpack.
Yeah.
And they searched the riverbank up and down for hours and could not find their backpack. But maybe it's to their benefit, because they were able to get out of the area safe and sound with their heads attached. Yeah. So maybe the valley keeps what it wants.
Yeah, so for myself, I got so fixated on kind of the Dene creation myth during my research because I found it so fascinating. So for myself, I can't help but look at this through the Dene lens, in that the valley is basically a timeless place. and you have to be careful going near there because it exists outside of time. You're still going to get echoes of those primordial beasts that the Horizon Walker banished from the world. It's a place that's not meant for you because it's from a previous time before humans.
Yeah, really fun stuff. Really fun stuff. Well, I suppose we should wrap it up. I'll link to all that in the show notes. I'll link to this book as well. Fantastic read. I can't recommend it enough. And he's got other books as well. Interesting and paranormal kind of aspects of Canadian history. And it's really well researched. Yeah, I'd love to get this guy on the show for an interview. We never know what we're doing until the week of.
Yeah.
So it never leaves time for stuff like that.
Well, you know what?
He's got a YouTube channel. I'll link to that as well, where he actually covers just chapters from this book, it seems.
Yeah,
so
I've watched a few of those. It's great stuff.
Really
I would love to revisit this topic because honestly, there is so much I did not get to.
Yeah,
so much great stuff I did not get to.
We left a lot out. Yeah, and we had to squeeze into an hour and make it cohesive. But yeah, I feel like we're definitely going to be revisiting this and connect it to other
Trapper
stories.
Story was just so good.
That's so good. It's so good. I love that. That really hooked me in this week.
Yeah.
But anyway, we should probably leave it there. Thanks for following. We don't know if we're going to have a video this week. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
I'm going to do my best.
Maybe you'll see one. Maybe you won't. Maybe it'll be in a couple days. Who knows?
Oh, there'll be one either way. Whether it releases at the same time as the audio version.
Yeah.
We'll see how I do on Saturday.
How we do. Yeah. But I think this is a fun one to do a video for. So I'm really looking forward to that. Hope everyone's having a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. All the good stuff. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Good night.
Good night.